It was a cold Tuesday morning when Nurse Clara arrived for another shift at St. Lucas Hospital. The clock still read 6:12 a.m., and the front desk coffee hadn't even started brewing yet, but the emergency ward was already full. Clara was known among her colleagues for her almost supernatural dedication. No matter the exhaustion, the lack of recognition, or the weight of her personal life, she was always there, ready to care for others as if they were her own family. Some said she put her patients even above herself, but something felt different that morning. As she passed by the observation unit, one of the interns called her urgently. Nurse Clara, an unconscious elderly man, just arrived. No ID, apparently collapsed on the street. He's in room 3, but there's something strange about him. Clara entered the room without hesitation. A man in his 60s lay on the bed, visibly frail. Pale face, unkempt beard, deep eyes of someone who had carried years of pain and abandonment. He was unconscious and had no belongings other than an old wedding ring and a crumpled piece of paper in his shirt pocket, with a smudged phone number. She approached slowly, placing her hand on the man's arm, and a chill ran through her spine. Time seemed to pause for a moment. "Have you started the IV? Full blood work?" she asked, trying to stay professional. "Yes, but he hasn't responded to any stimuli. We're waiting on the CT scan." Clara took a deep breath, but the unease didn't leave her. That feeling, that man, something inside her screamed there was more to this than just a clinical case. Hours later, he woke up. The first word he whispered was faint, almost inaudible, but Clara heard it clearly. "Clarinia." Her entire body froze. No one had called her that since she was 8 years old. She turned abruptly. The man's eyes were half open, and for a second, Clara's soul returned to her childhood, to a day she had never forgotten, the day her father disappeared. In her childhood, Clara had a loving, attentive father, but one random Sunday, he simply went out to buy bread and never returned. Her mother said he had abandoned them, fled because of debts and alcohol. But Clara, she never believed that version. Deep down, she felt there was more to it. Now, lying in front of her, the man whispered the affectionate nickname only her father had ever used. "How do you know my name?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man coughed, tried to sit up, but collapsed back onto the bed, exhausted. I tried to come back." The machines began beeping. He went into distress. The medical team rushed in, and Clara, still in shock, acted by instinct. "I need a central line. Now! He's crashing!" Clara's heart was pounding like never before. It wasn't just his body that was collapsing. It was hers too. The emotional weight. The heart she had kept guarded for so long was on the verge of breaking. Hours later, the man was stabilized, sedated, and under intensive monitoring. Clara left the room with a wet face, unsure whether it was sweat or tears. She leaned against the cold hallway wall and closed her eyes. Could it be? Is it really him? What no one knew was that this encounter would not only change Clara's life, but the fate of everyone around her. There was a hidden secret in that reunion, a past buried for 30 years that was finally beginning to surface. And if this story touched your heart, take a moment now to subscribe to the channel. Here, you'll find real, emotional stories that deserve to be shared. Hit the bell so you don't miss a single one. Night had fallen over St. Lucas Hospital, and silence filled the wards, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of heart monitors. Clara sat alone in the break room. In her hand, she held a small star-shaped pendant she had worn since childhood, a gift from her father on their last Christmas together. Memories began to flood her mind like an old film, faded in color but vivid in emotion. Clara was an only child, living with her parents in a small apartment in the Ipiranga neighborhood of São Paulo. Her father, Miguel, was a carpenter, a man with calloused hands, an easy smile, and deep brown eyes, just like hers. He used to call her Clarinia, my little light. Every night, he'd tell her stories before bed, stories of talking trees, invisible fairies, and wooden cities. Clara believed every word. To her, he was a hero, the only one who could chase away her fears. But everything changed the day he left and never returned. "He's gone, Clara," her mother said through tears, holding her tightly. "He's not coming back. It's just us now." She cried for weeks, then months. Eventually, she learned to hide the pain deep inside. She grew up hearing that her father was a coward, a drunk who ran away. But something inside her always resisted that narrative. And maybe that's why, as a teenager, Clara chose to care for others. She became a nurse. Perhaps deep down, she wanted to care for someone the way she wished someone had cared for her father. Back in the present, Clara looked through the tiny ICU window at the blinking monitors. She got up, walked quietly down the corridor, and stepped back into the anonymous patient's room. He slept, still sedated, but his face, that face she hadn't seen in 30 years, now didn't seem so unfamiliar. The shape of his nose, the contour of his jaw, even the way his thumb bent slightly, everything screamed, "I'm your father." Clara pulled up a chair and sat by the bed. Her voice trembled. "Why did you leave?" The man didn't respond, but a single tear rolled down from his closed eye. Clara didn't know if it was just a reflex, or if somehow he was listening. The next day, Clara acted. She requested his complete medical file, approved DNA testing, and began searching for any record or clue about the man's identity. No one had come looking for him. No family, no calls. Meanwhile, other hospital staff began to notice Clara was different. Quieter, more withdrawn. "Just reflecting," she'd answer, smiling faintly. But inside her, a storm was raging. Mid-shift, Clara was called urgently to the hospital cafeteria. A homeless man had shown up there. Upon seeing the patient's photo, now circulating internally to help identify him, he said something that chilled her. "That guy, yeah, I know him. Slept next to me on the street a few times. Folks called him Old Miggs, but no one knew his real name. He was always talking about a daughter. Said he lost her. Said he screwed up bad and wanted to ask for forgiveness." Clara felt her knees buckle. "Miguel." She rushed back to the ICU. The man was awake, though weak. Are you my father?" Tears filled his eyes. He tried to raise his hand. "Clarinha, I never stopped thinking about you. I did everything wrong, but I never stopped loving you." She stepped back. Her heart wanted to run and embrace him. Her mind screamed from all the birthdays spent alone, all the nights without bedtime stories, all the doubts that haunted her for 3 decades. "Why, Dad? Why did you leave me?" He wept like a child. "I was threatened. I owed money to dangerous people. They said they'd hurt you both. I ran to protect you, but I could never find my way back. Then shame, fear, kept me away." Clara dropped to her knees beside the bed, crying like she hadn't since she was 8. "I spent my whole life thinking I wasn't loved, that you abandoned me." Miguel weakly touched the star pendant she still wore. "I always knew you'd shine." That night became unforgettable. Pain began to give way to something new, reconnection. But their reunion was far from a happy ending. The next morning, new tests revealed something troubling: severe heart failure. Miguel's condition was far worse than Clara had imagined, and time was running out. The sound of the heart monitor echoed through the ICU speakers like a cruel reminder that every second mattered. Clara stared at the screen with tired eyes, slumped shoulders, and a heart torn between pain and hope. In the 2 days since learning that Miguel was indeed her father, confirmed by an emergency DNA test ordered by hospital administration, Clara had lived in emotional overdrive. They'd tried to talk between shifts, during exams, and through medication changes. But now, Miguel was deteriorating fast. The diagnosis was clear: advanced congestive heart failure. His heart was slowly giving out, and the only real solution was a transplant. But Miguel wasn't on any donor list. Having arrived without ID or a medical record, he had 0 documented history. "He needs to be evaluated urgently for transplant," said Dr. Marcos, head of cardiology. But Clara, the chances are slim, and time is against him. She looked at her father, sleeping, gray-haired, his chest rising and falling with difficulty. "What if I find a donor?" The doctor sighed. "It doesn't work like that, but I'll try to push the case forward. Still, it's unlikely." Hours later, Clara sat alone in the hospital chapel, a place she rarely visited, but at that moment it was the only space where she could breathe. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why give me my father back only to take him away again?" She closed her eyes and placed her hand over her chest. A childhood memory surfaced. "You have the strongest heart I've ever known, Clarinha. One day you'll heal the world with that heart." Leaving the chapel, Clara was approached by an older woman in the hallway. Thin, hair pulled back, light eyes, visibly distressed. "Nurse Clara? That's me. Can I help?" The woman hesitated. "My name is Judith. I knew your father, many years ago." Clara's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I was his wife. After he disappeared from your life, he always talked about you. Kept a photo of you hidden in his toolbox. Never let go of you." Clara's stomach turned. "He had another family?" Judith nodded. "We had a son. Your brother, Clara. The world spun. He died 2 years ago." Motorcycle accident. Miguel never recovered. That's when he started to drink again, and then disappeared for good. I tried to find you, but only now I learned he was here. Clara burst into tears. I thought I was abandoned, but he was running, and then he rebuilt his life. Judith stepped closer, taking Clara's hand. Clara, I know this is hard, but he always spoke of you with so much love, so much regret. He wanted to find you before he died. Clara looked at her with tear-filled eyes. He found me, but it might be too late. Back in the ICU, Miguel began to hallucinate. The medications were losing effect. He called for Clara for his late son for names no one else recognized. Clara ran to his side and grabbed his hand. Dad, I'm here. Look at me. It's Clara. You're Clarinia. His eyes opened slowly. Do you forgive me? She pressed her forehead to his. I don't know, but I'm trying. That night, a call changed everything. Clara? Dr. Marcos here? We found a compatible donor. A heart is available, but there's a catch. What is it? The protocol requires a direct legal relative to authorize it. And as his daughter, that's you. But it's a high-risk surgery. He may not survive. The decision is yours. Clara fell silent. And if he doesn't get the surgery, he won't make it to morning. She stared at her hospital badge, like it might give her an answer. I've spent my life caring for everyone else. But now, this is different. She picked up the phone again. Do it. I authorize the surgery. Are you sure? I'm sure. Miguel was taken to surgery at 3:47 a.m. Clara paced the hallway for hours. Judith arrived soon after with hot coffee and silence, the kind that says everything. After 5 hours, the surgeon emerged. Clara rushed to him. Doctor? He removed his cap, face tense. The transplant was completed, but there was a complication. He's alive, but in a medically induced coma. The next few days are critical. Clara's world fell apart again. But this time, at least, there was a chance. A thread of hope. Or maybe the beginning of something she never thought she'd have again. A second chance to have a father. The ICU room was quiet, save for the rhythmic sounds of machines keeping Miguel alive. Clara gently ran her fingers along his arm. She'd slept right there in the chair beside his bed, as if walking away might break the fragile thread that still connected them. Days passed. The hospital moved around her. Emergencies, births, losses, recoveries. But for Clara, the world had stopped in that room. On the 6th morning after the surgery, Dr. Marcos entered the ICU with a cautious look. Clara, his signs are improving. Slowly, but steadily. He could wake up any time now. She swallowed hard. And if he wakes up, could he be normal again? It's possible. But he'll need physical therapy, counseling, and above all, he'll need you. Clara looked at her father. Miguel seemed at peace, unlike the anxious man who had arrived. It was as if, even in a coma, he had felt their reunion. That afternoon, a young woman came to the hospital looking for Clara. Nurse Clara? That's me. My name is Renata. I think my grandfather is here. His name is Miguel. Clara's heart skipped. Grandfather? My mom was his daughter with another woman. She passed away a few years ago. And recently my mom found out he might still be alive. She's very shaken and asked me to come. Clara was stunned. I'm also his daughter. They stared at each other in silence. It was like looking into a mirror decades apart. The same brown eyes, the same strong jawline. So we're sisters? Half-sisters, I guess, said Renata with a soft smile. But maybe that doesn't matter right now. Renata joined Clara in the ICU. They sat side by Miguel's bed. For the first time in decades, two parts of his life were reunited in one room. The pain began to dissolve into something deeper. Understanding. The next morning, Clara was in the cafeteria with Judith when the hospital radio announced breaking news. A clandestine rehab clinic was shut down in the East Zone. Among recovered documents were names of individuals forced to abandon their families under criminal threats. One of the names was Miguel de Souza. Clara dropped her cup. No way. Back at the hospital, she accessed the police documents. There it was. Miguel had been forced to disappear, not out of cowardice, but because he had been abducted and made to work as a carpenter in an illegal clinic, a front for organized crime. He was held for years, silenced by fear. He escaped with failing health, wandered the streets without ID, until he collapsed and was brought to the hospital. To San Lucas, to his daughter's hospital. It was as if the universe had done its work. The following night, Clara fell asleep by his bedside again. Suddenly, she felt something warm squeezing her hand. She opened her eyes. "Clarinia." The voice was weak, but real. Clara knelt beside him and held his face in her hands. "Dad, you're back." Miguel smiled. "You saved me." "No, you came back on your own. But now, you're not going anywhere." In the weeks that followed, Miguel began rehab. News of their reunion after 30 years spread through the hospital and eventually reached local media. Many patients began recognizing Clara not just as a nurse, but as a symbol of something greater: forgiveness, reconnection, and new beginnings. The reunion of a daughter and her long-lost father inspired dozens of people to search for missing loved ones, resolve old wounds, or simply hug someone still within reach. Time passed. 3 months after the surgery, San Lucas Hospital awoke to bright sun, clear skies, and something new in the air. It was Miguel's first day out of the ICU. After weeks of therapy, counseling, and hard work, he was finally ready to go home. Clara pushed his wheelchair with a soft smile, eyes shining with emotion. Miguel looked around in awe, as if seeing the world again for the first time. And in a way, he was. At the rehab ward exit, a surprise awaited him. A small gathering of Clara's co-workers, some inspired patients, and Renata, his newly discovered granddaughter, holding a sign. "Welcome back, Mr. Miguel." He smiled through tears. Days later, a local news story aired titled, "The Nurse Who Saved a Patient," and found her father 30 years later. Thousands watched, commented, shared. Clara began receiving letters from all over the country, people reconnecting with loved ones, saying goodbye to resentment, choosing to forgive. But the biggest change happened within her. At Clara's modest home, life took on a new rhythm. Miguel, still recovering, would wake up early and make coffee for her. He slowly returned to his old habit: wood carving, creating small stars like the pendant she still wore. "This one," he said, "is for when you have a daughter. She'll shine too." "How do you know I want kids?" she asked, laughing. "Because your heart is too big not to share." One Sunday morning, Clara took Miguel to the same park he used to take her as a child. A simple place with a swing, old trees, and benches with carved names. They sat side by side. "You know, Dad, I spent years thinking I was forgotten, then more years trying to forget you. And now?" She looked at him. Older, worn, but with the same brown eyes. "Now I just want to make the most of the time we have left. Because forgiving was the only thing that gave me peace." Miguel took her hand. "And I promise to use every day to thank you for not giving up on me." Months later, a golden plaque was mounted on the hospital wall, in honor of every reunion still waiting to happen. Clara de Souza. Clara and Miguel's story isn't just about forgiveness. It's about what can still be saved, even after 3 decades. About how truth, no matter how painful, can heal. And most of all, about a daughter who never stopped believing love deserved a second chance. Did this story touch your heart? Then leave a like right now. It really helps our channel keep bringing stories like this to life. If you've experienced something similar, or still dream of reuniting with someone special, share your story in the comments. You never know who might be waiting for your words. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Join our community and don't miss out on the emotional stories we tell every week. And if this one moved you, wait until you see what's next. Click on the video on the screen and get ready for another heart-touching story.